Today I'm going to share Savannah's birth story on the vlog. So I'll start on December 20th on Thursday, 2 days before her due date. I went in for a normal checkup with my midwife and she had me do a non-stress test. And I went in and pressed the button whenever I felt her move, and the midwife came in after I was done and she said that the baby wasn't moving as much as she would have liked the baby to. So she sent me into the ultrasound. And in the ultrasound, they checked for 5 criteria, which one of them was to check to see if the baby was breathing, practicing its breathing by breathing in the amniotic fluid. And she couldn't find it. So we came back in the next day on Friday the 21st, and I had a second ultrasound appointment, and they checked the 5 criteria again and they got them all checked off, and then she saw Savannah practicing her breathing right away. So there was no problems with that. So I went to see my midwife again so she could just check on me and make sure everything was still fine. And she brought just me back. I had 3 other people with me, but she brought me just back to the doctor's office, and she asked me, because she had heard that some of the people that I was with, they were kind of talking to me about me going in to get induced. So my midwife asked if that was something that I was interested in and that it was my choice, and so she was asking me at that moment if that's what I wanted. So I told her that that's what I wanted. So we went to the hospital and they got me hooked up to the IV and they started me on Pitocin, and then we waited. She told me she would probably be my midwife told me she would probably be to the hospital to break my water at about 4 o'clock. And then 4 o'clock passed, and then it was about 7 or 8 o'clock when a nurse came in and told me that my midwife had actually decided to wait for the doctor that was going to be on call in the morning to come in and break my water, so I wasn't laboring all night and then too tired to push whenever I had to deliver the baby. So I slept at the hospital with my husband, and in the morning a doctor came about 7 or 8 o'clock. She broke my water. They started me on Pitocin again. I had to have antibiotics for strep B that I tested positive for earlier, and then I was progressing really slowly. My mom and mother-in-law were there with us all day waiting for me to have the baby, and today was Savannah's due date when I was in the hospital when they broke my water. It was the 22nd, Saturday of December. And so I was progressing really slowly. I came in at a 1 or 2, and it wasn't until like maybe 10 or 11 at night when I was a 6, maybe at the most. And I got an epidural around 3 or 4 centimeters. So at about 9 or 10, my mom and mother-in-law, they went home. And Ryan and I tried to get some sleep as much as you can when a nurse is coming in to check on you every hour or so, and me waking my husband up to move my legs that I couldn't move because of the epidural, and the epidural wearing off twice during the night. Then at about 2 o'clock they checked my cervix again, and I was a 7. And then at 4 o'clock they checked my cervix and I was still a 7. And I had about 102 fever. So the doctor came in soon after that, and she sat down and she talked to me, and she let me know that it was my decision, and if I still wanted to labor and see if I could deliver this baby vaginally, then she would support me in that. But her medical advice was that I should have a C-section. So I went with her advice, and I decided to go with the C-section. And so she kind of made it seem like it was kind of laid back decision, and I could kind of do whatever I wanted, and nothing was really in a rush, or that the C-section wasn't really a big deal. But then as soon as I told her I was fine with doing a C-section, a bunch of people ran into the room and they were getting me ready, and I was in the OR probably 10 or 15 minutes later. And so that made it seem like it was a lot more of an emergency and something that needed to be done right away than the doctor was like putting across, which I get because she didn't want to worry me and get my heartbeat up and affect the baby. So they took me into the OR, and Ryan waited outside while they made sure that I could, that the stronger medicine would go through the epidural that was already in place, so they could make sure that they didn't have to do a spinal instead. So after they made sure that that was fine, Ryan came in and he sat next to me. And he sat next to my head, and they started the operation. They cut me open. And then they pulled Savannah out, and I heard her cry right away, and they brought her over, and she was so beautiful, and I just had like a feeling of overwhelming love pass over me for this little baby. And then they took her over to wash her, or to like wipe her off a little bit and take her measurements and weight. And Ryan went over to watch that and cut the umbilical cord, and so I was kind of alone on the table just waiting. And then they wrapped Savannah up and brought her over so I could see her, and after maybe 5 or 10 seconds of sitting there staring into her eyes, I got really sick to my stomach. So they decided it was time to take her to the NICU. Ryan waited with me until he was sure that I was feeling better, and then he went out and he took my family in to see Savannah for the first time. So they stapled me up and they took me to a recovery room, which I had to stay in for an hour. Maybe 15 or 20 minutes after I was in there, they finally brought Savannah into me, and I held her for the first time, and I fed her, and she latched on really well. And so everything was going pretty well, except that I was super exhausted from getting little to no sleep and being on really strong drugs that was making me tired. So they took Savannah to have her first bath, and all of my family went in with her, and my mom came with me to the postpartum room just to be there with me, and just so I knew that there was someone there with me and I wasn't alone. And then I tried to sleep a tiny bit before they brought Savannah back. So that is her birth story. She was born on December 23rd, 2012, and she was 7 pounds, 12 ounces. She was 20 1/4 inches. And then she was a really good baby. And my recovery after the C-section, it went okay. Probably was up walking without a lot of pain maybe a couple weeks later. The recovery in the hospital was really hard. Getting up, I almost passed out a couple times after getting up because the pain was so bad. But eventually I was fine. And then the staples, I'm not a big fan of because it makes the incision sting a lot. Even after they take the staples out, it stung a lot. And with Bentley's, I guess they glued me shut, and I never had that stinging around my incision. So I'm definitely a bigger fan of the glue or the adhesion than the staples. That is Savannah's birth story. It didn't end up the way that I was planning it to or really wanted it to end up, but I ended up with a healthy baby, and now she's a happy and healthy 2.5-year-old. And so really, if I went back, I probably wouldn't change anything. So in a couple weeks, I will post Bentley's birth story, and a little, probably in a couple weeks after that, I'll post my experience with breastfeeding. And next week we have a fun video that we're going to post of a Bean Boozled challenge that my husband and Savannah and I did. So that'll be a lot of fun. And we do post videos on this channel every Friday. I am thinking about maybe upping that and doing 2 videos a week. So if you like that idea, comment below and let me know. Also, comment below and maybe share a little bit of your birth story, or post a link to your birth story if it's on YouTube or on a blog somewhere, and I'll make sure to visit those and give it a look. It's always fun to see how your birth stories relate to other people and how they're different. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you can make sure to be notified for our future videos. And it was a lot of fun. Bye!